Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I'm Renee Allen, the host of this podcast, also creator and person who makes it come to you. Today, I'm going to talk to you a bit about Rejection Sensitivity Dysphoria, RSD. And I say a bit because there's a lot of ways that we could talk about RSD, a lot of ways that it can pertain to ADHD. And this will likely be a shorter episode. I don't have as much time to spend on it today. So I'm sure as I talk, there will be some parts that I'll want to add onto and maybe bring into next week. But if any of you don't know about RSD or it's new to you, it was new to me. I've just heard about it last year and how it relates to ADHD. And even though I just heard the name RSD last year, it's been a part of my life for many years. I was going to say since 1999. That's when my daughter, who most surely has this, was born. But I didn't see it in her that early. But I would say I saw it in her maybe at age 4 or 5. When I look back, I can see it in her at a lot of stages of her life. So as I talk about this, you can assess in your own mind, unless you've already been diagnosed with it or talk to your psychiatrist or therapist about it. But you may already know, oh yeah, I'm dealing with this in this way or that way. But if you aren't that familiar with it, you might find some aspects that you can relate to, whether you actually have the condition or you have a bit of it, or you see it in your children or your sister or your friend. I would think you'd have to know someone pretty well to see some of these behaviors, but you can check for yourself. So to start with, I used to think the D in RSD stood for disorder, and it doesn't. It's not a mental health disorder. It is, and I don't know, is it a mental disorder or mental health disorder? It's not a disorder. It is dysphoria. And what does dysphoria mean? I found this was kind of interesting. Dysphoria is actually Greek. It's a Greek word for difficult to bear. I have a friend who's Greek. She actually lives in Athens. I should ask her, what is the actual Greek word? Because you know how you hear, this is Greek. Maybe that's the English Greek. I wonder if the actual Greek is a little bit different. Maybe it's a word like Athena, dysphoria. She was difficult to bear. I don't know. I didn't look into that far, but clearly you can see there's so many tangents I could go on with this. That's why it cannot just be one short episode. But dysphoria means it's difficult to bear. When I've looked into it with the psychological definition, they define it as feeling a deep sense of rejection that it causes the person to experience feelings of shame or sadness or grief. And we might just think of it as being very hurt. And difficult to bear is a really nice definition because you might not be able to put into words why it's difficult to bear, but you don't feel good. You have a hard time dealing with the emotions that come up. And one of the aspects of ADHD is that you have or may have emotional dysregulation. And that, each of these topics are pretty fascinating to learn about. It all starts with the human brain. And the human brain has all of this wiring or this network of connections that need to connect in a certain way to function. And one of those functions, one of those jobs is managing memories. So if you have problems with working memory, that can be something that's affected by ADHD because the brain isn't wired in the same way as people who have really good working memory. And if you have emotional dysregulation, it means the wiring of how the thoughts or what you bring into your brain translate into your emotions, that a wiring for all of your senses, your brain learns to regulate those signals, make sense of them, and hopefully keep them at manageable levels. And you've probably seen people in your life, whether it's in your family or at different stages of your life, who have a hard time managing their emotions. We used to say, oh, that person has a temper, has a bad temper, or they have a hard time managing their anger. And maybe they work on that in some way and it improves. Or you yourself might feel like I'm not very patient. I used to feel like I wasn't very patient with my kids and I'm getting upset too easily. How can I manage that? And I worked on it and I found that I improved quite a bit. Some things aren't as fixable or easy to regulate, or we may not even realize. So, something like anger shows up in life. If someone gets upset at the checkout counter and yells in the store, that's a pretty obvious show of anger or an example that this person, one of these things is not like the other. This person is acting in a way that isn't they're not managing their emotions very well. And they're causing problems for other people. Have you ever been in a store and heard somebody talk really rudely to someone? And what's interesting, especially if they do it in a calmer voice because they might think they're in control. But one time my daughter and I were at the sandwich counter at Publix. Publix is a grocery store in the South, at least I don't know. I haven't been all over the South since we moved to Florida. I feel like I know these things that are the South, but I haven't been in very many states to know. But anyway, at Publix, the sub sandwiches are supposed to be really good. They call them pub subs. And we were standing there, and this man was not angry, but he is speaking loud enough so everyone could hear because I think he felt so justified. And he was talking to the person like at the counter, like she was so horrible because she wasn't able to make him the sandwich in the way that he needed her to. I don't know if they were out of some kind of cheese he wanted or what. It didn't really matter, but he was being rude. And all he was doing was displaying his rudeness to everyone. Everyone knew he was out of line. And it's too bad they used the word, oh, she's a Karen, because this man was being a jerk. But anyway, back to noticing emotions that aren't regulated very well. The emotions, okay, the emotional dysregulation happens when your brain can't properly regulate the signals that are related to your emotions. I know that's a very complicated sentence, but they're just not able to manage what's coming through the brain. And your emotions might feel like they're more severe or irrational because the brain isn't managing them properly. And the example that's given on a website that I like to look at for information about ADHD says it's like if you have the TV volume on your TV stuck and it's at a really high level and you can't turn it down. And most people, if it peaks, they're really angry or they're really sad or they're affected by what somebody says to them, they can turn that volume back down and take it to a level, maybe just it's on its own with the brain working more properly or some rational thought. Oh, it's really not that big of a deal if that they're not able to make the sandwich like I like. Whatever it is, they're able to not have it either get to that peak, that volume, or stay at that volume. But if it's stuck there, it's like your emotions are too loud for you to manage. Your emotions are so strong that you're not able to manage them. You're not able to be rational. You're not able to calm yourself. You're not able to stop yourself from feeling that. And then those feelings can cause you to be overwhelmed or uncomfortable or both, or even be in pain, emotional pain. And that's not very fun. And so, if you ever find that something affects you, like I mentioned in the last podcast, that for me to stand up to someone and correct them and defend myself, especially if it's challenging them and what they think happened or what they're so sure of or whatever. And for me to do that, I avoid that not just because I'm trying to keep that person happy, but because I am flooded with emotions of sadness and discomfort when I feel like I have challenged someone else, when I feel like I could have possibly made someone else uncomfortable. Is that strange to a lot of people? Probably. But that's been my life for a long time. And it's something that I've been learning about myself. And then I make that choice. Do I want to just be okay with not standing up for myself? Sometimes I don't need to. Or am I going to do it and have to live with those emotions? The volume just goes up and it's stuck there. And I have to do something with it. Sometimes what you do with that is you eat. Sometimes what you do that is you talk to somebody and just tell them the whole story and get it out. That's that verbal processing. Sometimes you spend money. There are ways to let those emotions, to kind of deal with them, to kind of appease yourself. Crying, even though you think, oh, I'm going to burst into tears. I felt that way in Target. And if you haven't heard that episode, it's just a little story. But anyways, the optical department in Target, they didn't do anything wrong. It was miscommunication, life, human error. It happens. But I walked out because I challenged the person, not just once or twice, but to a point of where I just said, you were there too, and really stood up and said, I'm not getting this wrong. I'm not lying. And as I walked out, because I was so filled with that volume being up so high and the emotions being so extreme, crying was really helpful. Walking was really helpful. Walking through the store, getting some tears and just letting that disrupt a little bit. Because letting something disrupt, when you cry, you are letting those emotions out. It's not always comfortable, especially if you're in public. And that's just part of our society where we're not comfortable crying in public, and people aren't comfortable with us crying around them. They're usually trying to stop us from crying. I found myself doing it too, and trying to help someone else. Oh, don't cry. Actually, maybe it's good. I'll sit here and let you cry, and help them get that out. But emotional dysregulation, it can happen for women with ADHD because of our brain structure and how it processes the information that comes in. Sometimes the information is correct and it just brings the feelings on too strong. And sometimes the information that comes into our brains, how we're perceiving things, is not accurate. And with with rejection sensitivity disorder, sometimes the information we are getting is correct. We are actually being rejected. And sometimes we're just perceiving rejection when we're not actually being rejected. And that is really fascinating. And we think, oh, don't be so sensitive. Well, can that be something that somebody just changes? Thanks for telling me that. I won't be so sensitive anymore. If you know anyone or you have rejection sensitivity without this dysphoria, without the pain that comes with it, or just the symptoms of rejection sensitivity, being sensitive may be a natural process for your brain. So there is a difference between rejection sensitivity on its own and rejection sensitivity dysphoria. People with rejection sensitivity often feel severe anxiety or other negative emotions if they're just worried about being rejected or they are rejected. So you can have severe anxiety with rejection and not have it be to a point of the dysphoria. So you can have rejection sensitivity on its own. You can also have trouble seeing neutral or vague reactions, and you perceive them as rejection. So you might see something that's not actually rejection, but you perceive it as that. It might be neutral. It might be somebody with a straight face. And we often need a smiling face. and smiling eyes and encouragement and encouraging words to help us know we're not being rejected. Last night I went to TJ Maxx, and I was thinking about it afterwards, of course, because I have to evaluate everything. But the young woman at the register wasn't someone I've seen there before, and I haven't been there in a while, actually. But as she started, she said, "Are you a TJ Maxx Rewards card member?" And I said, "Yes." And sometimes they smile like, "Oh, good," but she didn't smile, and that was okay. I didn't need her to celebrate with me. But then I said, as I'm taking things out of the cart, I was looking at how much I was spending, and I thought, I really don't need all this. The stuff that was at the bottom of the cart that I first thought, I'm really not buying much today. I think I'll buy some Easter egg towels. They were really, really cute. So I grabbed some Easter towels for $9.99. Well, at the end of the shopping trip, when I decided, I want to buy a rug. Actually, I want to buy another rug. I want to buy another rug in case I need these in different places. Anyway, they had some good rugs, and I don't even know if I need them, but I can return them if I need to. But I was over $100, and I looked at those towels, and that was just the early store portion of my shopping. And I didn't really see them there at the end. And so I took those out, and I grabbed 2 sets of socks because my fitness socks are starting to get more worn down. And I thought, you really don't need both. You really don't need white. Just get the black ones. So I handed her each of those. And usually the person there will say, "Oh, yeah, I can put those away. No problem." And I said, "Oh, I decided I don't want these. I don't need these. Can I hand them to you?" And she said yes. And she gave me a straight face. So it was a neutral reaction. You might even call it a vague reaction, but it was just very neutral. She just said, yeah. So she took them and she set them aside. And I thought, I don't think she liked that. I don't think that she liked that. She must think, gosh, why couldn't you just put that back by yourself? And that may be what she was thinking. But if I measure her other reactions, every other thing I did, I was evaluating this later, everything I did, she gave me that same neutral face. "Sure, I'll take this. You don't have to put it in a bag." Still the neutral face. I'm going to use my rewards credit, neutral face. Everything I did was the neutral face. So at the beginning, I was feeling a sense of rejection, but I was able to regulate it. I didn't feel bad about myself. I just thought, maybe she doesn't like that. And then maybe I was anticipating, like, she doesn't like me. But often we get signals from people, and if they aren't really clearly supportive, we can think it's rejection. Or we can just think, my husband always says, they don't like their job. That's his excuse if someone at a job is not having great customer service. They probably just don't like their job. And that might not be true either, anyway, but we all say our stories, right? But we may not always interpret correctly how somebody feels about us. And someone at the store, it probably doesn't matter how they feel about me. But someone in my family, on Christmas Day, someone might say something to me, and I might feel completely rejected and think they really have a problem with me. But realistically, does that person have a problem with me? No. But, one comment, I could spiral into that if I wanted. I just bring up Christmas Day because that's supposed to be the happiest morning, right? But even on the happiest morning, we might feel that way. We might think, they like that present better than they like that one. Maybe not. But if you have rejection sensitivity, you might deal with things like that and wonder, why am I wondering this? Why am I not just enjoying my time here? Why am I letting these thoughts come in? And you might actually experience rejection, real rejection, and you might overreact to it. You might get angry. You might be filled with rage. You might have extreme sadness. You might have severe anxiety or just some anxiety from it. But you may have feelings of rejection that are deeper than other people experience. And all of those things, the feeling anxiety or other emotions, or having trouble anticipating or not, and not anticipating, interpreting what someone else is doing, and you might perceive it as rejection, and you might experience actual rejection and have greater feelings than most people do. If someone has RSD, the dysphoria part, they have all of those things that I just mentioned, that the people with rejection sensitivity, both of these can be related to ADHD, the rejection sensitivity, or the RSD. The RSD have all of those components, but they have one more. And they describe an intense, if not overwhelming, level of emotional pain. They feel emotional pain. Often people with RSD can't even find words to describe what the pain is like. They say it's intense, awful, terrible, overwhelming. And it's always triggered by perceived or real loss of approval, love, or respect. They feel that rejection, and it's extremely hard to deal with because it's so overwhelming. As a result, some people with RSD avoid social situations or getting to know people for fear of rejection again, or don't want to be in front of people, or have a fear of being humiliated, or just think that no one likes them to begin with and not want to be around people. My youngest daughter felt that way in high school. And I know it's harder when you're in elementary school, you're not exposed to social pressures. You get into middle school and that starts to become more of a thing of knowing who's popular, who isn't, this clique, that clique. High school, it can be more extreme. And I saw signs of RSD later when we both learned what RSD was. Now I see signs in little ways when she was younger, but in high school, flat out, she seriously thought that no one liked her. Even in her friend group, she didn't think they liked her. And she had friends, she was invited to do things, but she didn't think they cared about her. She didn't think they would miss her if she wasn't there. She didn't think they were interested in hearing about her. And we would drive through town and she would tell me about somebody she knew. And then she'd say, but that person doesn't know me or they don't like me. My daughter is beautiful. She's gorgeous. She's sweet. She's kind. She's smart. But she has this emotional dysregulation in her brain and wasn't interpreting what was real. And we didn't know anything about it then. She's learned a lot since and is doing a lot better with that. And I don't have much more time, so I'm just going to end with it here and go on with this again early next week. But if you have someone in your life or if you have RSD, one thing that is really helpful is just to be able to explain those concerns to someone. You don't have to get into the depths of all of it, but just be able to let what is going on in your mind out to somebody or journal it or record it. I mentioned Marco Polo in my last podcast, that it's a video. It's a way to video text, basically, and you can make a video and send it to someone. One of my friends actually makes them for herself. I'm not sure how she does that. I mean, you can just make videos, but she does it as her video log. She'll just record Marco Polos for herself. But I thought you always had to send them to someone, so I have to ask her about that. Maybe she's just keeping a record. Maybe she has more than one phone number or something, and she's sending them to another phone. I'm not sure. But she said it really helps her talk through things. And for me, when I'm on Marco Polo, it really helps me to talk through things too. And sometimes I'll make it and I'll think that's too much of a load for someone to listen to, me complaining about that. And I'll actually delete it and tell them a very short version. But because I just got to talk about it in full depth, I feel so much better. And my daughter in high school found that that was her best coping mechanism, was to come home from school, walk in the kitchen, and tell me about all the people who were rude to her, mean to her, or what was hard at school. It wasn't always that she was talking bad about people, but, just getting out what had built up inside of her and just letting it out so she could just walk down the hall and do her homework or enjoy the rest of her afternoon. And sometimes as a mom, it was hard. It was hard for me. to absorb it all. Sometimes I was very supportive and very fine, and other times it's just like, okay, the negativity, the negativity, the negativity. But she needed to unload that negativity. So if you are having overwhelming emotions to that overwhelming level, finding a way to release it, whether it's exercise, going for a walk, screaming, punching a pillow, even if you're not angry, letting that out with your body. Yoga seems like a mellow way, but it's still that movement and the breath. That talking is all really, really helpful. And just real quickly before I go, there is a book called The Body Keeps the Score. I'm not sure who it's by, but in that book, the author talks about how we store our emotions in our bodies. And just knowing that much, and if you have overwhelming emotions, moving your body is helpful to process and get rid of those emotions and help let them go. That's why, the breathing, the running, the yoga, all of those things, the exercising, even singing, those things that help push that out of your body with some kind of movement or sound is really helpful. So that's just my little tip. I really have to go. I'm teaching a class in 15 minutes. I had to time this because it's the only time I could fit it in. I was going to make this Thursday morning to release on Thursday, but I'm going to Disney World tomorrow, and Thursday morning I'm watching my grandson, and I know I won't be able to record while he's here. And I don't want to make you wait too long and record it later in the day. So I'm doing it Tuesday night, and it's a shorter one, but I will be back. I will talk more about this because I think it's pretty fascinating. If you have any questions about rejection sensitivity dysphoria, or even just rejection sensitivity, that's a lot to say really fast. But if you do, feel free to go on my website and take my quiz or something. You'll end up getting my email address that way, and you can write to me or go on my contact form on my website, renee-allen.com. It's great to know you're out there. Thank you for being a part of this community. I really, really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Double chins, rubber ducks, squeaky cheese and paper cups, applesauce, Superman, rocket ships and Peter Pan, boogie boards and parachutes and soda cans, jumping jacks and pillowcases for my hands, Donald Duck and fire trucks and Pokemon, Santa Claus and Johnny Depp and Donkey Kong, chocolate chips and zipper zips and 914, little children jumping on the trampoline, model trains and passing lanes and super glue, tangerines and magazines and kangaroo. Daily Rock. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me. I buttered my toast, spread on some grape jelly. I don't mean to boast, but I'm a chef and a good one. My grandma can't hear me. The breakfast is done, and I'm getting colder, ever older, so I run. Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. Rewind, I've run out of time to sing melodies and harmonies. I'm cut short. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.